Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Power Core Productions and Podcastings. I'm your host, John Harrington, back to hit you with another video. And today, we're going to be continuing What If Naruto Was Trained by Dr. Strange? Naruto Mystic Adventure Shippuden, Part 1. As always, if you enjoyed today's video and everything else that we have on the channel, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is Power Core Productions and Podcasting that has to come out now and in the future. Now, before we get into today's video, there is one thing I do want to note going forward with a lot of my what if stories. That being that I want to try to get the runtime down as much as possible. Not that I don't mind doing longer stories, but just that in general, in order for me to get out more content at a much higher quality and at a better pace, it would be a bit more beneficial if the stories didn't have a runtime of always going over an hour or close to it. So that's why going forward, a lot of my videos, I'm trying to get them to around the 30-minute, maybe 35-minute mark, maybe 40 minutes tops for the most part. That way, in doing so, if I want to, I could get out maybe 2 videos a day if possible, or I could do videos on Saturday. So I just want to try to grow more with the channel going forward, trying out different things, trying out new things. So that's something that I want you to keep in mind. I know a lot of you guys are fans of the longer videos, and there will be longer videos from time to time, but I want to try to keep the runtime a bit short if at all possible. So I want you guys to keep that in mind going forward with this story and with other stories that we'll be doing in the future. Also, we're very close to our goal of hitting 2K on the channel, and with May 2nd coming around next week, that being my birthday, I would really appreciate if we could hit 2K before then, as I really think that that would be a great milestone since I rebranded the channel on May 2nd. Actually, that was when I started doing my stories in the first place. So to kind of hit 2K on the anniversary of the rebirth of this channel, it would be a big deal. So at all possible, if you can, let's try to get this channel to 2,000 subscribers by next Monday. I think it's something we can definitely do. We're only 125 away, I think. So let's just see what we can do in the meantime. Trying to get ourselves to 2K and beyond. The channel, it's growing beyond belief. We've gotten a lot farther than I could have possibly imagined. And it's thanks to all you guys. Like I've always said since the beginning, since we revamped, you guys make the channel grow. You make the core grow. You're a part of this family. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who supports Power Core Productions and Podcastings. It means a lot to me. You guys make making these videos enjoyable. I love what I do, and I just want to take the time to say thank you again. You know, I appreciate you guys as always, and I can't do it without you. So just want to give you guys that appreciation. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into today's video. So as always, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. As the team set off to the hidden sand village, Naruto would discover that he wasn't the only one with new abilities, allowing him to be much faster than he could have ever possibly imagined. Both Sasuke and Sakura had tricks of their own. Even Haku was decently fast, but since they were in a rush, Naruto being especially worried along with Temari for the safety of Gaara, as well as everyone else, they knew that time was of the essence. With Naruto carrying Haku, and Sasuke helping with carrying Temari, the group would arrive to the hidden sand village much faster than even they were expecting. A trip that even at top speed normally took 3 days to make, the group was able to achieve that feat in less than 18 hours, something that was truly remarkable. Once they arrived to the hidden sand village, They would make their way to the hospital, where Haku would get to work immediately. Using her expertise in medical ninjutsu, she would help heal Kankuro from the poison he received from his battle with Sorcery of the Red Sand. When Granny Chiyo arrived, seeing Haku in action, not only helping Kankuro of the poison, but also being able to strategically make antidote for the poison itself, she was able to conclude that Haku had received training from none other than the legendary Sannin herself, Lei Tsunade, her rival from the Second Great Ninja War. All the same, she was impressed with how Team 7 was able to function, and even more so as they began their investigation into finding Gaara. Sasuke would thankfully get help from Kankuro, who even in his defeat was able to provide them with much necessary information. Using his puppet, he was able to steal a piece of cloth from Sasori's robe. With this, Sasuke was able to use his ninja hounds, summoning them forward. But not just any ninja hounds. These hounds were enhanced with Sasuke's own magical ability, making their sensory and tracking skills even greater than before. As such, tracking down the Akatsuki would be much simpler for them. Once they had everything they needed, they were preparing to leave, when Chiyo would offer her assistance as well, revealing that she was the grandmother to Sasori, and seeing the problems he had caused. She felt that it were only right that being a family herself, that she be allowed to help in dealing with her unruly grandson. And with that, the 5-man team would set off at once, moving at top speed. Unknown to Team 7, Lei Tsunade had also sent Team Guy as backup, and they would be arriving shortly after. Before they left, Sasuke would tell Naruto to memorize the Land of Sand, making sure he got a good memory of the village. Knowing that he had the ability to open portals based off of where he had been, this would prove to be a key strategy point in their fight with the Akatsuki. And if things were going to go the way they needed to, that he needed Naruto's strength as well. Once Naruto's mental note had been made, the team would set off at once, following behind the hounds as they quickly tracked down Gaara's location. So much so, that the team moved quicker than anyone was expecting them to. Just before they could arrive to the entranceway, after the two teams had merged together, they would be intercepted by Kisame and Itachi. The groups would split off into two. While Team Guy dealt with Kisame, Team 7 would have to deal with Itachi Uchiha. Sasuke, remembering his training with Loki, would remember to keep himself composed and to not get riled so easily. Keeping a clear head, Sasuke would lead his team into battle, everyone taking their positions and knowing what to do. Chiyo stood to the back but assisted where she could, as Sasuke took the forefront. After all, him being the only one with the Sharingan capable of matching with Itachi's. In the meanwhile, Naruto would assist with his magic from a distance, along with Sakura. The group now seeing that all of them had similar abilities, not just in the ability to form magical constructs, but in the terms of the mystic arts in general. Each one looked at one another wondering just how on earth they had been able to learn and master their abilities as well as they had. All the same, it really didn't matter at this point. Even for Itachi himself, he found it hard to try to keep track of what they were doing. His Sharingan was able to read chakra, but the power that he was reading from all three of them wasn't entirely chakra based at all. It was another form of energy, another power, one that he couldn't fully understand or decipher completely. It wasn't too far off from chakra, but it wasn't ninjutsu at all. As such, the team was able to get the upper hand on Itachi, eventually defeating him. Of course, this was only to realize that for both teams, they weren't actually dealing with the real Itachi Uchiha or Kisame Hoshigaki, but rather, these were just mere clones that were created to slow them down. But all the same, they would make their way to the cave, Once seeing that there were a 4-place seal, each member of Team Guy would go to remove one seal at the same time. This, however, proved to be a trap in and of itself, as Team Guy would have to deal with fighting against their doppelgangers. Although now, it did leave the cave open and free for attack. Haku, using her enhanced strength, would easily break through the stone wall that was blocking them forward. The team would make their way inside, and what they would see would be horrifying. Seeing Gaara floating in the air, watching as the chakra of Shukaku, the One-Tails, being extracted from him. Deidara and Sasori focusing all of their attention on extracting the chakra of the tailed beast, that there wasn't much that they could do once they had been intercepted. Naruto immediately went racing towards Gaara, pulling his body from out of the place of the ritual. Their contact with the other members of the Akatsuki being cut off all at once. Deidara and Sasori now focusing their attentions on what had happened. They would go to attack Naruto immediately, but then that's when Sasuke would yell for Naruto to do it. Naruto, with anger in his eyes, but not having any time to worry about that, as he held on to Gaara, who would begin to cough profusely, would jump through a portal that he created behind his back, disappearing before the Akatsuki could even know what had happened. The ritual had been intercepted. If they had had a few more days, then they would have been able to get much more out of it. At most, they got around 40 to 45% of the One-Tails chakra. About half, to say the least. Gaara would be taken immediately to the Hidden Sands Hospital, as Naruto arrived through a portal instantly falling through, holding on to Gaara. The medics would get to work on healing the Kazekage and helping him. Temari extremely grateful that Naruto was able to save her brother. However, now wasn't the time. As Naruto created another portal, he jumped back through instantly, arriving to the battlefield to see what was happening. As Deidara, now angered at an Uchiha who had gotten in his way, would focus his attentions on Sasuke, while Sasori continued his battle, not just with Chiyo, but with Haku and Sakura as well. Naruto joining the fray would help Sasuke instantly, as they went fighting against Deidara, knocking him out of the cave as they continued their fight outside. In the meantime, Sasori would turn his attentions to the three women, as now the two-way battles for both sides were now beginning. Within the cave, Sasori would have his hands full, going up against Sakura, Haku, and his grandmother Chiyo. All three of them were powerful in their own right, with techniques so formidable that working together, it proved to be more than what Sasori could handle. The battle started out with Sasori inside of his Hiriko puppet shell, using it as defense while trying to keep them at bay. Haku, however, was able to use her ice release, creating large blockades of ice to shield against his fire, as well as his poisonous needles. And as for Sakura, her ability with chaos magic proved to be more than what anything that Sasori could have been expecting. Using her magical abilities, she was able to move rocks, boulders, and debris, launching them towards Sasori and forcing him to stay on his guard, while Granny Chiyo would try to go in for an attack whenever possible. Not just with her magic, but Sakura was also proficient with water-style ninjutsu, using water clones to give herself even more of an advantage. All three working together proved to be a formidable trio. Sakura and two of her water clones would then use a combination technique. This would be known as the Water Hydra Dragon Jutsu. This technique required Sakura with two of her water clones to work together to perform the water-style Water Dragon Jutsu, the first water-style jutsu that Sakura had ever seen used by Kakashi back in the Land of Waves when he fought against Zabuza. Being proficient with water style, Sakura took it upon herself to master different water techniques, as it was the chakra affinity she was best with. Doing so, she came up with her own unique jutsu, in which her and two of her clones would all three perform the water-style water dragon jutsu. This would create 3 water dragons that would merge together to form 3 heads. This was known as the Water Dragon Hydra Jutsu. Basically a combination of 3 water dragon jutsus. However, when enhanced with their chaos magic, making the dragons even stronger, it proved to be truly deadly, more so to the point that it ended up destroying the Hiriko puppet shell, forcing Sasori to reveal himself in the process. This would force Sasori to then engage with his next level of power, summoning forth the 3rd Kazekage puppet. A puppet made from the body of the real 3rd Kazekage, whom which he was able to kill and turn into a puppet. Even more so, the 3rd Kazekage puppet was capable of using the jutsu of the 3rd Kazekage, including his poisonous iron sand. Granny Chiyo would use her own chakra-like puppet strings to move the girls out of the way and coordinate their attacks. Haku, powerful with her ice release jutsu, along with her skills in medical ninjutsu, as well as her chakra control and monstrous strength, was a dangerous shinobi to have on the battlefield. With her pinpoint accuracy and precision, using her Senbon, she was able to use them to slice away at the chakra threads of Sasori, making it so that he would have to reattach at various points during the battle, slowing him down just long enough for Sakura and Chiyo to get in their shots as well. Working together, they would be able to destroy the 3rd Kazekage puppet, forcing Sasori to have no choice but to reveal his true nature, that he had turned himself into a puppet. Now using his strongest technique, the 100 Puppets Jutsu, it would now force all 3 of them to go to their highest levels of attack. Sakura, channeling her inner chaos magic, would make short work of a few of Sasori's puppets, being able to forcibly control them, contorting their bodies and destroying them to a point where they would no longer be usable. As for Haku, she would use her various forms of ice release to battle against her own horde of puppets. Using the crystal ice mirrors, she would be able to bounce through from mirror to mirror within the room, being too fast for the puppets to keep up with the further they got away from Sasori, and in the process, she was able to hunt and take them down as well, even using the ice-style Wolf Fang Avalanche, creating 2 wolves made entirely out of ice. They would effortlessly run through and make a muck of a few of Sasori's puppets also. And finally, there would be Granny Chiyo herself, using her legendary 10 Puppets Jutsu. The 10 puppets would work together effortlessly and do good damage against the remaining 100 puppets of Sasori. Despite everything that he could throw at them, the 3 shinobi proved to just be too much for Sasori to overcome. Ultimately, he attempted to use trickery to take them down, but in the process, he would find himself being defeated. Though, one could argue that at this point in his life, that was something he simply wanted. And it was by none other than the puppets made from his mother and father, Granny Chiyo using them to bring forth a hug around her grandson, as they used their blades to stab him through the heart, the only piece of him that was even human. As he stood there defeated, Sasori would commend them for their efforts. In the end, their teamwork and their abilities proved to be more than what he could handle. And as such, he felt they needed to be rewarded for their efforts. As he turned to Sakura and Haku, he told them that he had a spy, one that had been keeping tabs on Orochimaru, and if the Hidden Leaf deemed it necessary, then they should have this bit of information. That 10 days from now, he was originally supposed to meet his spy in the Land of Grass, an area known as the Tenchi Bridge. If they were to arrive there within the next 10 days, then they would be able to meet a spy, and from there, they could potentially get their hands on Orochimaru. Or not. That would be up to them. Both Sakura and Haku would look at one another, surprised that they would be given such information, and knowing firsthand that they would need to report this to Lady Tsunade when they returned back to the Hidden Leaf Village. Meanwhile, on the outside, to say that Deidara was having a tough time with both Sasuke and Naruto would be an understatement. This would be the worst case scenario for Deidara to go up against. Fighting against Sasuke, he had his left eye especially trained to see through genjutsu. However, what he wasn't expecting was a different form of illusion, one that his eye simply could not see through. One of the key notes that Sasuke had learned from Loki during his 2.5 years worth of training was to create his own form of illusion magic, one separate from just mere genjutsu. What made this truly deadly was that without the Sharingan alone that could even perceive this type of power, those without that such ability would have no way of dispelling magical illusion from genjutsu, as they were just two completely different forms of illusion. As such, Sasuke would mix in his illusion magic along with his genjutsu, casting the both of them simultaneously. Deidara would easily see through the genjutsu, however, he wouldn't see through the illusion, often finding himself caught a trap within a trap. On top of that, Sasuke would also use his teleportation ability. While he was limited in the range of which he could move around on the battlefield, he made up for it working alongside Naruto, their combination attacks proving to be more than what he could handle. With Sasuke, his Sharingan, his illusion magic, his teleportation skill, and with his various forms of lightning release, from the overdrive to the Chidori stream, he was easily able to counter Deidara in his earth release, his clay explosions. On top of that, fighting with Naruto, the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, Deidara couldn't go all out or risk killing the Nine-Tails in the process. As such, Naruto was able to add his own form of spin to the battle. Using the images along with the illusions of Icon, they were also able to catch Deidara off guard as well. Since these were clones made out of magic, he couldn't perceive them either, only making his situation even worse, until eventually he found himself in a no-win situation. Being pushed to the brink and finding himself on the losing end was more than what Deidara could handle. Believing that he had finally gotten the upper hand, Deidara, in his final bid for desperation, already feeling the stinging loss of losing to Itachi Uchiha, and now not wanting to suffer the same fate to his younger brother, or to the dreaded Nine-Tails. In an act of pure selfishness, Deidara decided to go all out. He would coax them into letting their guard down, before unveiling his trump card, the C0. At this point, he didn't care about the Akatsuki's dreams or anyone else. He wanted to show off his ultimate art. His art, the greatest explosion. One that would serve as the death of Sasuke Uchiha and Naruto Uzumaki. However, as he attempted to use the C0, it would sadly be all for naught, as Naruto and Sasuke would easily vanish into a portal created by Naruto. In doing so, they would escape the blast. Deidara's explosion, one of the greatest that he could have ever created, ultimately proving to be useless, as it was no match for them in their abilities. With the Akatsuki duo now defeated, both Naruto and Sasuke would return back to the others within the cave, as they could feel the large explosion even from where they were. Once they made their way inside, Naruto would help them all gather what they needed, collecting the body of Sasori and a few of his puppets, before Naruto would create a portal taking them back to the hidden sand village. Once they arrived, they would wait one day, giving a report to the officials of the hidden sand, as well as waiting for Gaara to recover. For the most part, he was conscious, but he had lost almost half the chakra of the One Tails. It would take some time for it to replenish and rebuild itself. But now they had a much more bigger issue to worry about. With 2 members of the Akatsuki dead, it was only going to be but a matter of time before they came back to the Sand Village once again, in even greater force, looking for the One Tails potentially. There was no way to confirm whether or not the One Tails was alive or dead, and so, Sasuke concluded the best course of action was to simply state that Gaara had died in the battle. Gaara would object to this, seeing himself as the Kazekage. He didn't want to take a move that would be cowardly, to simply go into hiding. However, Sasuke would remark that doing this would be a benefit not just to himself, but to the hidden sand. As he would remark, the Akatsuki, if they knew that Gaara was alive, would only come after him with even greater force. And based on the Akatsuki's motives, and looking at just how far they were willing to go to get the One Tails, they had no qualms with destroying a village. If Gaara stayed here, he would only make himself an open target, and the village would suffer for it. The room would become rather somber at that point. Not that everyone didn't understand where Sasuke was coming from, but at the same time, the idea of just running away from the Akatsuki was more than what anyone could handle. But Sasuke would remark that this didn't have to be forever, just until the threat was abated. And in the meantime, Gaara could recover and get stronger. Even with the One Tails, there was still so much more that he could do, so much more training that he could undergo. He could afford to get a lot stronger than he was right now. Sasuke would even ask Gaara that during all this time, how much training had he managed to do with the One Tails anyway? Even remarking that Naruto had made progress in taming the power of the Nine Tails. Once hearing this, Gaara would think it over and realize that for all of his training, he never truly mastered the power of the One Tails to begin with. If he did, maybe he could have been a lot stronger. Maybe he could have defeated the Akatsuki, and he wouldn't have had to have been rescued. Things could have been a lot worse, and he realized if he were going to be the Kazekage, the one who would protect the Sand Village, then more effort was going to be needed on his part. Gaara would agree, and that the official word was to be given out that he did not survive the battle, and that he was in fact dead. If the Akatsuki got word of this and believed that Gaara was killed in the process, especially with Deidara giving off his large explosion the way that he had, then that would only put a wrench in their plans even further, if they believed they had to wait for the One Tails to reincarnate itself once again into the world. Thus, that would give them ample time to strike. From there, both Kankuro and Temari agreed that they would help run the Sand Village until Gaara could return. In doing so, they now had to decide where Gaara was going to lay low. And that's when Naruto had an idea. Deciding that Gaara would go back with them to the Hidden Leaf, they would create a portal in private, leaving the Sand Village at once. In doing so, Gaara would go with them, as he bid his sister and brother farewell, noting that he would return soon enough. From there, Team 7, along with Gaara, would arrive to the Hokage's tower, and they would explain the situation. Jiraiya would be given a message and summoned back to the village immediately. Thankfully, Jiraiya had a sling ring of his own, so getting back there quickly wasn't an issue. Once he arrived and was briefed on the situation, he knew exactly where to take Gaara. He would take him to Mount Miyaboku. There he could recover and train in secret, and the Akatsuki would have no way of reaching him. Being thankful, Gaara would say his goodbyes to everyone, vowing that he would train and get stronger and master this power, looking to Naruto as an inspiration. And with that, Jiraiya would leave with Gaara to Mount Miyaboku. From there, Tsunade would congratulate Team 7 on a job well done. Everyone played their parts well, and it shone just how strong they had gotten in the last 2.5 years. After being given their reports, Sakura would also tell the information to Tenchi Bridge, catching Sasuke's attention. This now left everyone wondering what they should do in the meantime. But Tsunade would dismiss everyone to leave, but Sasuke had something to speak with her about, in private. Everyone else would leave and give them space, as Naruto did want to spend time with Haku, getting a chance to catch up as they hadn't seen each other in so long, and it had only been after he'd gotten back that they had this mission to begin with. As for Sakura, she actually had a date. She was going out with Rock Lee, something that definitely surprised Naruto of all people, but in a way it kind of made sense. Lee was a good guy after all, and Sakura, now starting to learn to branch out and open her horizons more, she had taken an interest in the taijutsu boy, and they were going steady. In the meantime, Sasuke, after speaking in private with Lady Tsunade, would ask to be given the Tenchi Bridge mission, wanting to atone for what had happened. Sasuke had never let it be forgotten that the Sasuke retrieval mission 2.5 years ago had definitely opened his eyes. Things could have been so much worse, and he often held himself highly responsible. He would always think about Hinata, remembering when he saw her in the hospital, how she had been badly injured against Kimimaru in the attempt to save his life. That had a profound effect upon him. It was why he was always so protective over her, and why he had always tried to better himself. That mission, along with the counsel that he got from his master, Loki, made him realize that his actions affected other people, not just him. Whether good or not, Sasuke had to realize that people would always pay for the choices he made, good or bad. And that was living proof of it. He knew that Orochimaru needed to be brought down, and he wanted to be the one to do it. Lady Tsunade would be a bit skeptical. After all, they didn't want to have another situation where Sasuke could potentially fall to Orochimaru, but Sasuke had gotten so much stronger since then. As they were speaking, someone would walk into the room, speaking on Sasuke's behalf, and this would be none other than Kakashi Hatake. Kakashi would have overheard how Team 7 performed on their mission, and he was proud of his students. The fact that they were able to handle such an assignment without him, it made him feel like he was getting a bit too old, and he wanted to have a chance to work with his pupils once again. Of course, for a mission like this, they didn't want to take all of Team 7, but that this should be more of an Anbu operation. As such, Kakashi would offer to lead a team, and that if Tsunade would grant the permission, he wanted Sasuke on his team of Anbu. Hearing this, Tsunade felt a bit more secure in her decision, and she would agree. Kakashi would lead a team of Anbu, with Sasuke under him. Their mission was to meet with the spy at Tenchi Bridge. This was to either lead in the capture of the spy, or in the death of Orochimaru. While capture was also suitable, Tsunade realized that for a mission like this, the best case scenario was that they could potentially kill the Snake Sanin. Of course, capture was also justifiable, but she had to keep her expectations realistic. After accepting the mission, they would be told that they would have 3 days to put the team together and to head out, as that would give them 5 days from their time of leaving to the day of the meeting at Tenchi Bridge. With that, Sasuke would thank Kakashi, and Kakashi would tell him that he understood his reason for doing so, his reason for going on the mission. And he knew that this was a chance for Sasuke to get redemption, and he was proud of his student for how far he had come, and he promised to aid him in any way that he could. But for now, he should enjoy his day off. Sasuke, noting this, would leave the Hokage's tower instantly, as he made his way to the Hyuga compound, as there was a certain someone he wanted to visit that he hadn't seen for a bit. In the meantime, Kakashi would undergo putting his team together, and he already had a few people in mind. But as he thought this over, he made his way back to his home. As the sun was setting, he would close the door behind him before going to his room. As the window was open, he would sit on his bed as a bird flew in, landing on the bed in front of him. Kakashi opened his left eye, his Sharingan morphing into that of the Mangekyo. As he looked into the eye of the bird, the black-feathered bird, the crow, would open its left eye as well, its eye being that of a Mangekyo Sharingan. As the two red eyes looked into one another, the room would morph and change into an inverse world that was red and black. Kakashi still sitting on the bed, he would look up. The bird would be gone, but standing before him was a new contact that he had made on his journeys. Kakashi was more of a spy than Jiraiya could have ever hoped to dream. And by chance, he had made an ally that no one was expecting. However, this partnership had to be kept secret if things were going to play out the way that they needed it to. Then they had to make sure that all the pieces were in place first. The figure before Kakashi would be in a black robe with red clouds, as he looked towards the silver-haired Jonin. "It's good to see you again, Kakashi." "Indeed, Itachi. It's been a while. What did you wish to discuss with me? Is it about Sasuke? How is he doing? Your brother's doing very well for himself. He recently rejoined with Team 7. They were able to save the Kazekage." "I see. I wonder if you had anything to do with that." "I wouldn't know. I only sent a clone with 30% of my power. Although I must say, your students have become far more impressive than I could have ever imagined. I wonder who trained them all." "I trained Sasuke some, but how he learned to use magic, as they call it, with both Naruto and Sakura, I can't tell. But that's besides the point. I have something else to discuss with you. It's about Tenchi Bridge. Me, Sasuke, and a few other Anbu are going to be there in 9 days. Will you be doing anything around that time?" "I believe I should be free. What do you need?" "I just need you to keep a lookout, in case something happens." "That might be a bit difficult given my situation, but I'll see what I can do. Until then, stay safe, my friend. As you, Itachi." The scene would fade, and the room would return to normal, and the crow would disappear, as Kakashi closed his eye. The journey to Tenchi Bridge was soon at hand, and the fate of the shinobi world could potentially hang in the balance with this alliance that was being formed. From here on out, things would never be the same. This concludes What If Naruto Was Trained by Dr. Strange? Naruto Mystic Adventures Shippuden Part 1. As always, if you enjoyed today's video, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is Power Core Productions and Podcasting that's to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video as we are going to be continuing What If Ben 10 was in the MCU? What If Ben 10 was in Avengers Age of Ultron 2015? But anyway, that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with Power Core Productions and Podcastings. Signing off, and I'll see you next time.